Sylphs have managed to captivate the imagination of people for well over 6 centuries, inspiring songs, debates, dances, and even occult rituals. A sylph is an air spirit, an air elemental. The word sylph was first coined by the 16th century Swiss physician Paracelsus. Paracelsus was not only a physician, but also an alchemist and a philosopher of the German Renaissance. Paracelsus was a well-respected and serious scientist and metaphysician of the 16th century. His thoughts, opinions, and concepts were considered highly reputable and honoured, and so in Paracelsus's day, sylphs were not considered to be mystical fairies of the sky, but as a scientific observation. Paracelsus described sylphs as invisible beings of the air, elemental spirits of the air, and associated them with the four classical elements: water, earth, fire, and air, their temperament being mirthful, changeable, and eccentric. The belief in the existence of nature spirits is common to many cultures throughout history, and sylphs are believed to have been here since the beginning of time. It is believed that they created the landscape of reality. They can be attached to a specific place, for example, trees, rivers, plants, or even mountains, and some sylphs have been described as being human in form, and others like animals, and even half animal, half human. And these days, when sylphs are observed, they are considered as clouds. The typical cirrus and cirronimbus cloud formations are expressions of the sylphs, and these type of cloud formations indicate an unstable layer in the atmosphere. Some people consider cirrus clouds to be the creatures cleaning up chemtrails. As an air elemental, the sylph's domain are the skies, the wind, the air, and all it encompasses. Sylphs travel through the air, surfing the winds and air currents and shaping weather patterns, and they have characteristics to what we humans call the mind. The mind, in Buddhist terms, is often compared to the sky, open and expansive. Thoughts come and go, but the mind can be quieted into a profound stillness, resembling an infinite, still, expansive sky. The sylphs are very fluidic and can move fast at times, flowing through the atmosphere with grace and ease. And an important quality of sylphs is freedom, as air moves freely around our planet and around all obstacles. And so, because sylphs love freedom, they rarely have any contact with humans, as humans love to control everything. Sylphs love music and harmony, moving freely through the air. They can cover vast distances, feeling any subtle changes in weather patterns. They love to harmonise and balance not only the weather, but also the different energies coming from the earth and the cosmos. And so it is believed that sylphs disperse the accumulations of negative human-created energies, and for this purpose, they can easily make changes in air pressure as well as conjure up storms. In the elemental world, there is an evolution among its inhabitants. With each element, a spirit starts out as a tiny being with very little awareness and consciousness, and primarily engaged in the limited tasks assigned to it. Over time, these tiny beings expand their consciousness, raising themselves in rank, taking on more important tasks, and this reflects in their appearance when observed by humans. Sylphs are the older, wiser, and more developed beings of the elemental kingdom. Sylphs are air divas, and like all of the diva origin of this world, their etheric or lowest body realizes an existence of at least 500 years, and although not angels yet, sylphs possess a wondrous degree of mentality. Sylphs are immortal beings with souls, and they do not inhabit the same volume of space as the air. Their actual being resides in the physical vacuum as a coherent holographic form of energy, and this holographic form is typical of many forms of consciousness, including the consciousness of human beings. Karl Prabram, an eminent neurophysiologist, believed that the memory and consciousness is not contiguous with the brain or even with physical form. He believed that they exist in the form of a hologram. Prabram was originally puzzled by a paradox, and this paradox was that cognitive processing had very precise locations in the brain, but within these locations, the processing itself appeared to be determined by masses of excitations and without regard to particular nerve cells. He was aware that certain parts of the brain performed specific functions, yet the actual processing of the information seemed to be carried out by something that was not particular to any group of cells. Prabram believed that memories were not localized at specific brain sites, but rather were distributed throughout the brain as a whole. He also believed that vision, like memory, was also distributed throughout the brain, and one of Prabram's considerations were that because neurons are packed so densely together, the expanding ripples of energy, electricity, and a wave-like phenomenon are constantly crisscrossing one another, and this may be giving the brain its holographic properties. Prabram carried out experiments on dogs and cats, and his research showed evidence that brain response was distributed in patches across the cortex. He discovered single neurons in the motor cortex respond selectively to a limited bandwidth of frequencies. He then thought that the brain must somehow read information by transforming ordinary images into wave interference patterns and then transform them again into virtual images, just as a laser hologram is able to. Was it possible, Prabram wondered, if what the mystics had been saying for centuries was true? Is reality maya, an illusion? And what is out there? Is it actually a vast resonating symphony of waveforms? A frequency domain that is transformed into the world as we know it only after it enters our senses? Another interesting man is David Bohm, an American scientist who has been described as one of the most significant theoretical physicists of the 20th century. His unorthodox concepts, contributing largely to quantum theory, neuropsychology, and the philosophy of the mind. Bohm suggested that were we to view the cosmos without lenses that outfit our telescopes, then the universe would appear to us as a hologram, and Prabram extended this insight by noting that if we were deprived of the lenses of our eyes, as well as the lens-like processes of other sensory receptors, then we would be immersed in a holographic experience. I talk about the holographic brain in my video, The Synthetic Agenda, so go check that out when you can, and you'll find some very interesting information there. And so into the etheric envelope of the Earth's atmosphere come literally hundreds of rays, mostly of solar origin, and there are little less than 40 specific rays which penetrate our atmosphere. The Sylphs work with the etheric conditions created by solar and cosmic forces, and Sylphs are unable to prevent the inner accumulated radiations of these beams, but they do possess an ability which enables them to create wide and appropriate canopies of sufficient size. And these canopies act as screens through which these rays penetrate less forcefully. Depending upon the need of a tree, hillside, mountain, or even a community, the Sylphs give their individual or group labour toward the building of numerous screens, which are made up of the Sylphs' own etheric substances. And the existence of these screens is determined by the Sylphs' own recognition of the length of time such rays will be active in that specific location. Sylphs are the caretakers of the sky. Sylphs have been known to generate rain from air masses that have no moisture. Meteorologists state that there is a 0 chance of precipitation in certain weather conditions, yet an inch or more of rain can fall from dry air. It is believed that Sylphs can transmute air into water. So, is there a connection between Sylphs and chemtrails? When you look up into the sky, You may see the trails that airplanes leave behind. We call them condensation trails or contrails. Jet engines spew out hot, humid air into the cold atmosphere, and this process causes condensation that crystallizes into ice. And these crystals are the cloud trails we see that form behind the plane as it flies. Now, contrails usually dissipate quite quickly, but lately these trails have started to linger much longer in the sky than previously observed and can stay in the sky for hours, creating a fog which blocks the sun. Turbojets and low bypass turbofans are the only engines capable of producing contrails, but most commercial jets and military jets do not use turbojets or low bypass turbofans anymore. They instead replace them with the more efficient high bypass turbofans, and these high bypass turbofans are almost incapable of producing condensation trails. And so if they cannot produce them anymore, then why do we see so many trails left behind planes, and why do they linger for so long? These trails are not contrails, they are chemtrails, chemical trails. They differ from contrails in that they are geoengineered aerosols that contain toxic chemicals. These white streaks often crisscross the sky as planes fly back and forth. Chemtrails began showing up over North America in the late 1990s, and now they are observed all over the world. It does appear that chemtrails have nothing to do with jet engine combustion processes. Water samples of areas affected by chemtrails have been found to contain alarming amounts of heavy metals, dangerous metals such as aluminium, strontium, barium and thorium. Chemtrails are a death sentence to our environment. They pollute rivers, lakes, oceans, land, plants, forests, animals and humans. These chemtrails can diminish rainfall, cause rainfall, trap the heat and increase humidity. People under chemtrail attacks report respiratory and flu-like illnesses, mental confusion and depression. Barium weakens muscles, including the heart muscle, and weakens the immune system. Thorium is known to cause cancer and leukemia, and aluminium can cause Alzheimer's disease as well as damage the immune system. And strontium can cause stomach pain, diarrhea and headaches as well as damage to the bones. Government agencies flat out deny that chemtrails exist. If you Google chemtrails, you'll find many sites that tell you that they are nothing but contrails. And why would the government want to spray dangerous chemicals all over us? Well, that is a whole other story. Maybe a future video in the making, possibly. Sylphs are mostly transparent when working on chemtrails. They can be seen rounding up the aluminium particles. Sylphs may be considered to be our sky guardians. In 1959, Trevor James Constable, an early UFO writer who believed that the UFO phenomenon was best explained by the presence of enormous amoeba-like animals inhabiting Earth's atmosphere. He wrote about these amoeba-like animals in his book, They Live in the Sky. This book contained infrared photographs that he had taken of huge plasmoid-like living creatures that he referred to as critters. Constable's 1976 masterpiece, The Cosmic Pulse of Light, also contains a number of stunning infrared photographs that were taken in the late 1960s, and these photographs reveal long processions of these critters flying across the sky. These photographs captured entire fleets of these critters drawing energy from a steel production plant. There are also time-lapse photos of these critters being drawn to streetlights, making sharp turns, reversals, and even materializing and dematerializing, and this indeed expands the insight into the subject of sylphs, creatures which appear to be one and the same with Trevor James Constable's critters. Constable also wrote about how the United States Air Force sent out Foo Fighters during the Second World War to photograph and possibly shoot down the wing enveloping lights which were spooking their bomber crews. German airmen were also witnessing similar phenomena and named them gremlins. And these gremlins were known to cause mechanical problems in aircraft. These sylphs were a pest to pilots and ground crews, and in many ways prevented the United States Air Force from carrying out their missions. And so the Air Force developed ways of detecting and repelling sylphs. Microwave and radio frequencies were discovered which repelled sylphs, and radar was also developed which detected and repelled sylphs. And it was found that frequencies used in Doppler weather radar irritated sylphs. Constable discovered that when he placed one of his infrared photographs of a critter, a sylph, on the metal plate of a Roof B drown diagnostic machine, that he was able to determine that calcium was a major component of the third dimensional portion of these sylph air bodies. Constable later determined that the calcium was an air gel or air mesh. Constable believed that this air gel is less than 1% of the sylph, and that this enabled the sylphs to adapt and continue their battle against the nuclear nations of the world. And as we know, the United States Air Force is made up of military types who think in terms of friend or foe and us and them scenarios, and because the sylphs are working against the Air Force, they are considered enemies, and so the Air Force is going to find their weaknesses and neutralise them. It may be considered that sylphs are coordinating a large part of our planet's ecology, and so to neutralise the sylphs may indeed destroy life on Earth. It has been suggested that the Gwen, Alf and Harp arrays were first developed as a way to destroy sylphs, yet after 50 years of trying to destroy them, the sylphs still rule the skies. There is a military adage that whoever owns the skies has a superior tactical advantage and will in turn eventually win the war on the ground. And so this is worth looking into more. To perceive sylphs, it's best to perceive first that everything physical has a spiritual origin. Even the clouds that are commonly thought of as simple water vapour in the sky actually hold consciousness of humans as well as non-humans. Through experiments run by Mr. Emoto, we have discovered that water does indeed hold consciousness. Sylphs can be found in the clouds, the breezes, storms, hurricanes and wind funnels. They model snowflakes, gather clouds and direct airflows. They aerate cells with prana, purifying the atmosphere and purifying the mind. Sylphs help with oxygen-carbon conversion for the human and plant kingdoms. While sages say that these elementals, the sylphs, lived in the element of air, they meant by this not the natural atmosphere of the earth, but the invisible, intangible, spiritual medium, an ethereal substance similar in composition to our atmosphere, but by far more subtle. Sylphs are the highest of all air elementals, their native element being the highest in vibratory rate, and it is believed that sylphs, salamanders and nymphs have much to do with the oracles of the ancients, speaking from the depths of the earth and from the sky above. Carl Sagan says that the surface of the earth is the shore of the cosmic ocean. On the shore, we have learned most of what we know. Recently, we have waded a little way out, maybe ankle deep, and the water seems inviting. Some part of our being knows this is where we come from and long to return, and we can, because the cosmos is also within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. So why should intelligence be confined to physical animal bodies? And it is not just the living bodies that contain energy and matter. Solids, liquids, gases, plasmas, and possibly other states of matter yet to be discovered also do. One thing that does seem clear about sylphs is that they are trying to protect the earth and its inhabitants from harm. They have consciousness and compassion, and are capable of being analytical, caring, and ethical.